Well, there's been confirmation that the World Academy of Sciences has now elected its first woman president, and that the person elected is a South African, the well-known researcher who spent really most of her life researching HIV and AIDS, Professor Quarraisha Abdool Karim. Professor Abdool Karim, good afternoon to you, and congratulations on your appointment.
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to the viewers. Thank you so much for that warm message of congratulations. Really appreciate it.
How do you see your role in this position? What do you think the World Academy, what do you think maybe the world of science needs to focus on right now?
Yeah, I think one of the high priorities is how do we ensure that we have a science literate society? And I think, that links back to good quality education, which is Sustainable Development Goal 4. And I say this because while we are really living in an era with incredible scientific advances, we are also living at a time when we have an epidemic of disinformation. And the ability of the public to sort out what is true and what is factually correct and what is right, I think we see some indication of that in decision, for example, to use a vaccine for COVID-19 or not. And for me, that's one of the big highlights. The second is that, increasingly we need a science literate workforce. And as we see the technology developing, we have a glimpse of that with remote working, etc. We also see the gaps, particularly in low middle income countries, in terms of where the world is going and where we are. And so technology provides an opportunity to leapfrog us as societies in low middle income countries, but we need a lot of investments and effort to get us to that point. We're already somewhat behind, but part of that science literate workforce needs to start with primary school, high school, and then our tertiary institutions. And then thirdly, we're also dealing with many challenges. We're seeing a convergence of pandemics, climate change issues, food security, agricultural production, need for alternate energy sources, and the list goes on, reflecting the diversity with which science contributes to society, but also the convergence of a number of challenges that threaten humanity, our lives on Earth. And so we all need to be looking for solutions, and science has a key role to play in finding solutions to the many challenges that face us. Not only find those solutions, but also make sure they reach communities that need to benefit most from them.
I mean, we live in a world now where I think science and facts have become politicized in a way I never imagined. We had during the pandemic, as you will know better than I, people who were very happy to have their children vaccinated against certain diseases, but wouldn't themselves be vaccinated, would lead protests against vaccinations. How, as scientists, do you deal with that?
So there's the issue of knowledge generation, and then there's the issue of translation of that knowledge. And I think that decisions around, once, for example, we have a vaccine, making the vaccine available is the next step. And it's a much more complex issue. So if you think that developing the vaccine is complicated, I think getting that vaccine into policy and practice is a lot more complicated. And as scientists, we tend to focus more on the knowledge generation process, on the publications in the peer review journals. And I think what we have learned in COVID is we have to do more around science communication. We also have to understand better the complexities of moving from finding something that works to ensuring it reaches populations that it needs to reach. And the disinformation epidemic, pandemic, if you like, that's happening in parallel doesn't really help. And specifically in relation to vaccines, there's been a growing number of people across the world who don't believe in childhood vaccination. And that may come as a surprise, because I think in most low middle income countries, certainly in Africa, people have come to value the childhood vaccinations. We've seen the benefit of it. We've seen how infant mortality rates in the first year of life has been substantially reduced, even in the first 5 years of life. And so when you come across individuals, groups, communities that don't believe in childhood vaccination, it is a bit of a surprise. And so that's been growing, and I think has come and converged with the COVID-19 vaccines. And a huge challenge facing us in terms of how do we deal with that. And I think with childhood vaccinations, for example, even if not every child is vaccinated, if about 80% of children are vaccinated, you protect the 20% that's not vaccinated. Now, when that grows and you have that 20% growing to 30% or 40%, then it puts the lives of the 60% that are vaccinated at threat, in addition to the 40% that's not vaccinated. So these are very, very serious challenges, and they don't come with easy solutions. And I hope that as scientists belonging to different science academies, we can start to apply our minds better and in a more focused way on how to ensure that the scientific solutions we develop don't get lost and really benefit humanity.
Professor, I suppose you will be described, and I described you, as the first woman president of the World Academy of Sciences. And I've spoken to some women who've been the first in their position, and some see it as really important, and some I think are slightly irritated to be described in that way. And I think I understand both of those positions. I can't say I feel it, but I think I intellectually understand it. How do you feel about it?
Well, I look at it as some progress that we've made. A bit surprisingly, it's the 21st century, and you would think a woman president should really not be singled out on the basis of sex or gender. But that it tells us how much more work we need to do in terms of gender parity in the workplace, including in the science community. I think that, the World Academy of Science recognizes the gap in terms of ensuring there's equal numbers and both men and women pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and has put a number of steps in place. One of the things I noticed being a TWAS fellow was how few women scientists we have from low middle income countries. So one of the things I did was took some of my winnings from the various prizes I've received and created a fund to encourage and support women scientists to apply for these funds. And it's been really nice to see how over the years the quality of those applications have improved. So I think we do need to fill these gaps. We can catalyze it. We can get angry, or we can do something constructive about it. It's there. There are these disparities. We have to recognize it as an important first step. And then we need to very actively look at how do we address it so that we have a society where everyone has an opportunity to reach their full potential.
Professor, I really appreciate the time. Thank you. Professor Quarraisha, Abdool Karim, speaking, of course, as the President of the World Academy of Sciences. Professor, thank you.